Hey everybody, before I get started, I just want to mention a couple of ways that you can engage with me on a more personal level. I have a few avenues set up and I keep focusing on one, and I figured why don't I make a short little video talking about all of them real quick before we get into these episodes. So first thing, Patreon. There's a link in the episode description, in every episode description to the Patreon, as well as a video on the feed called Major Announcement that has all the details of what each tier offers and how much they cost. I implore you to check that out. I offer a lot of cool shit for my patrons. Second thing, the Discord channel. There's also a Discord link in the episode description and in every episode description. I have multiple channels set up there for each show that I'm covering, and it's a great way to just engage with me. I have a channel set up for MMA talk as well. I'm a big MMA fan, so if you're an MMA fan, you can check that out as well. There's a link to the Discord in the episode description. And then lastly, the Facebook and Twitter. Social media. Follow me on there. I post news on there. When I say news, I mean like, hey, I'm stopping covering this show. Hey, I'm starting covering this show. Let me know what you think about this. I do live watches of things on Facebook where like I'll check in and say I'm watching so-and-so show, and then I'll like live comment while I'm watching it, and that'll be cool if maybe you watch that show too and you want to watch along with me, or you're watching it later and you will see my thoughts, which are usually pretty entertaining because I'm usually pretty high when I'm writing them. So check out all those links in each episode description, and let's talk about this episode. Peace.
One mic, one mic. Yeah. All I need is one mic. One mic. Yeah. All I need is one mic. One mic. One mic.
Hey everybody, welcome back to One Mic, and today I'm here to talk about Season 1, Episode 8 of AMC's Mayfair Witches, entitled What Rough Beast. The episode title is named after the episode itself because what a rough beast this episode was to get through. I mean, this was truly a uniquely terrible episode of television. Like, truly, this is probably the worst season finale I've ever seen. And there's been talk like, okay, what are the worst series finales? And people talk about Dexter, and people talk about The Sopranos sometimes. And the Dexter series finale was incredibly unsatisfying. It wasn't a terrible episode of television like this was. This is a bad episode of television. Just on its face, bad episode of television. As a season finale, like, historically bad. Like, I don't know if I've seen a season finale this bad. You know, a season finale is supposed to be like an exclamation point on the season. Like, oh man, what a great season. What a great way to wrap it up. This was just a great experience. I'm excited. I'm thrilled. I'm trying to come down off this high. This shit was like a fucking, like an ellipsis or like a tilde, a little wavy thing. Like, this was such a fucking turd of an episode. Like, for a season finale, there's precious little to discuss. And I think it's because this show, I've said this all season, this show has behaved as if they think not giving any information about what is going on and just hitting you with weird fucking visuals and all that. Like, I think they think that it's mysterious and that makes it cool. And it's like, it's not mysterious. It's stupid. And like, you can't follow it. And, but before I even talk about the episode itself, I want to talk about the after show that they do with this, because the after show is interesting because every time I watch an episode, I think about, I get in front of you guys and I'm like, this didn't make sense. This was dumb. And I don't watch a lot of complimentary content. So like, I don't watch a lot of after shows. I do in my personal time, but I don't watch them for the purposes of like what I'm going to say to you guys about an episode. I don't watch other people's reviews of stuff. I don't do that, period. I don't care what anyone else thinks. The whole point of this channel is to tell you guys what I think. And then my hope is that you trust me enough that you're like, okay, he likes this thing, I'll probably like this thing. So I don't let other people influence me, especially because I don't want to get in front of you guys and say that I like something just because everyone else said it. And then now 5 years down the road, I'm over here trying to talk about that same thing was whack. Meanwhile, I'm on here on the internet forever talking about it was great. I'm not going to be looked at as somebody who's full of shit. I tell you guys what I think, based on nothing that anyone else says. It's just based on what I think. I don't even know what anyone else thinks. At least not until after I record a video. My point in saying that is I very rarely watch after shows, but I watched this one. And what irritates me about this show's after show is that all the shit that doesn't make sense, the showrunner gets on there and explains it. And it's not like, again, it's not complimentary content, complimentary with an E, not with an I. It's not complimentary content in that, oh, okay, that was a great episode. Now let me learn about some behind the scenes stuff. Or now we're going to go more in depth about what this character felt in this moment. We're going to talk to the actor on the show and they're going to be like, yeah, shooting that scene was crazy. No, every after show for this is the showrunner explaining what happened in the episode because nothing on the screen makes any fucking sense. And that's what irritates me about this show, is that it's so fucking shitty that you have to have the showrunner come on for 5 minutes afterwards and tell you what happened in the show you just watched because the shit that she's telling you wasn't on the fucking screen. And that's why I don't like this show. You know, we spend a lot of, I'm gonna, this isn't a segue, I'm just gonna start talking about the episode, but I don't even know where to begin with all the things that I hated about this episode, but I don't want to spend a lot of time here. I didn't even want to do this video, to be honest. Like, I'm like, if this wasn't the last episode, this would have been the moment where I was like, yo, fuck this show. I'm not covering this anymore. But I did 7. I might as well do the 8th one and be done with it. All right, I'll start from the top. So we spent a lot of our time, I think maybe like the first, I want to say 18, 19, 20 minutes, somewhere in that range, with Rowan essentially passed out in the woods, while Lasher has her mind stuck in that, like, what seems to be the same kind of mind prison that he had her and Sip in earlier, which is when she got impregnated, when her and Sip had sex. That whole thing, they kind of made us think that Lasher did that on purpose so that Rowan could be impregnated. It seems like she's in that same thing this time, right? But like most things on this show, what was actually happening was quite muddy. So, like, for instance, like, she's laying there, he's like, Rowan, can you look deeper? And she seems to be doing, like, her power, where it's like she's, like, moving through something. But then she's inside, like, I don't know, look like the inside of a fucking tree. Who knows where the fuck she was at? She's like, there's, like, markings on the walls, and she's like, what language is this? And he's like, oh, it's Suzanne's language. She's like, can you teach me? I'm just like, what the fuck's happening right now? Like, you were just shot and bleeding out on the ground. Now your mind is inside of a tree and you want to become bilingual. Like, what is happening here? And then you get the showrunners comes up in the after show and is just explaining, like, she's like, oh, this is, Rowan has been seeing this tunnel and now she's in this tunnel and she learns that it's a tunnel of knowledge, and she understands that she has to use the markings to gain more power and to heal herself. Like, she's explaining everything that the episode didn't. The whole time I'm like, so she just touches these markings and now she's healed. Like, none of it made any sense. And the fact that the showrunner comes on there and explains the shit afterward, that just made me 10 times angrier. And the reason I'm so fired up right now is because when I watched it the first time, for whatever reason, I didn't have the little after show part. I didn't watch it for whatever reason. And I went back and I watched it like an hour ago. So like right before I did this video, I watched that after show and it just made me so mad. But so, I looked at it like it started off like her little magic trick that she does. She ended up being in an entirely different place. And then they played that as if she did it on her own. But then it seemed like Lasher trapped her there. And I'm like, how can he, like, it seemed like she made it because he's like, can you dig deeper? And it seemed like she was like controlling this. But then she got in there. He turned it into Suzanne's cottage and now she's stuck. I'm just like, what the fuck? Like, what is even happening? And then she heals herself and they're like, oh, it's because you're the 13th witch. I'm like, okay, cool. So we're rolling that shit out, in the finale. Cool. Okay, the 13th witch can heal herself, I guess. You're talking as if that's a thing we covered on the show. We haven't. She later then she has sex with Lasher, even though she's already pregnant with Sip's child. And then in the show's usual fashion, even though she's already pregnant, she like gets more pregnant after having sex with Lasher, which of course like muddied the water about whose baby she was pregnant with from my perspective, right? I'm like, did Lasher impregnate her just now? Did his baby replace Sip's baby? Did his like ghost come make her pregnancy go full term? Like, what is happening here, right? And again, like as the episode progressed, I think we're to understand that so I'm gonna explain to you what got muddy for me, and I'm gonna tell you like how I'm making sense of it. Okay, so the baby situation and the 13th witch thing and the prophecy. All of those things I thought were super fucking muddy because the prophecy, like, I can't tell what the goal is. I couldn't tell if, like, Rowan was the goal or the baby was the goal or are both the goal. That's, I think, is what threw me off. And I think only once I accepted the possibility that both were the goal is when it started to I'm gonna say make sense, but when I started to kind of like at least come up with a theory for what the fuck was going on. So my thought is that we see Cortland in this episode kill the guy that he hired, supposedly, at least we thought at the time, to impregnate Deirdre. He kills that guy, then rapes her and impregnates herself, I guess to facilitate Rowan's birth. Now, never mind the fact that why did Cortland have to do it? Like, why hire a guy to impregnate someone, then kill that person and do it yourself? Why didn't the guy just do it? Like, does like I said, does it have to be Cortland specifically that impregnates her? Like, I don't know, right? But that made me think, okay, Rowan is important because Cortland did this whole thing to facilitate Rowan's birth. But then it kind of looked like the baby was important. And I'm like, why is the baby important? And they talk about Lasher essentially needed a body to inhabit. So, like, I pieced together, I think, the idea is that Lasher essentially is inside the baby of Rowan and Sip. The only thing is I think, like, okay, like, he seemed to have a lot of use when he wasn't a physical person. Now he's a baby. like, is he gonna grow real fast? Like, asking questions to help make sense of this show is foolish. It's a fool's task because nothing on this show makes sense. So why waste your time? But and then, as if I wasn't already confused, like, okay, is this Sip's baby? Is this Lasher's baby? Like, what's going on? As if I wasn't already confused, it didn't help that she then gives birth to this alabaster fucking baby. And I'm like, they couldn't find a mixed baby for this? I'm like, this baby looks like fucking Conor McGregor. And they're just like, no, it's fine. No one's going to notice. And I'm like, but this show has shown me that those sorts of things aren't important to them. The things that glue a show together, that help it make sense, the little things that make a good show great. This show is not even remotely concerned with those things. Like, those things would make a shitty show decent. This show doesn't give a fuck, so this show is just shitty. But they wait to the finale of the season to explain what was going on, and I again, I feel like I'm mostly clear on that, but it was really only after, like, a second watching the thing that the showrunner was talking about, and just kind of like while I'm composing my notes, trying to make sense of what I had written while I was watching it. And here's the crazy thing. This is probably, of the 8 episodes, the only one that I watched sober. And it was the one that made the least amount of sense to me. Like, I can't even imagine if I had watched this high. Like, I'd have been completely lost. I'm looking at my notes like, I was sober watching this? Like, what? like, what is it even? Like, my notes are just as confused as, like, me right now. Like, my notes are replete with, like, what the fuck is happening right now? That's like I use that phrase in my notes for this show every episode. All right, I think I covered a lot of what I think we learned. The thing about Cortland killing the one guy, Rowan being the 13th witch, the baby essentially possibly being inhabited by Lasher, like that's going to be Lasher's physical body. They also note that somehow, because explanations are, again, non-existent on the show, that she now has Lasher's full abilities. She can teleport 7 feet from one place to 7 feet away. She can make little fire, like little candle flames in her hand. Stupid fucking parlor tricks that this guy can do. That's what I think, right? And then she, like, turns Cortland to stone. I'm like, Lasher hasn't even done that. What is this? And then she does it. It was like, I have all of his abilities. He don't have that ability, far as we can tell. But again, this show's not concerned with making sense. I'm like, why'd she turn him to stone? And then even in that scene, prior to that scene, she'd already given birth to the baby. She's holding the baby, and like its skull is like morphing and doing weird shit. And she's like, yo, fuck this baby, and gives it to Suzanne and runs off. Then the next scene, she's like casually walking down this hallway. The baby's crawling behind her. Cortland appears out of nowhere. I'm like, what is that? Again, what is happening right now? Did the baby, like what is it? Like, did Suzanne chuck the baby into the hallway and it landed on all fours? And now it's crawling. Like, this show is just terrible, terrible. And you know another thing? A lot of little side tangents here. You know what really pisses me the fuck off? HBO's out here canceling all kinds of shit that's 10 times better than this garbage. And it's because HBO has such a high bar that HBO can go, we don't even need Westworld. Fuck Westworld. Westworld to me was never quite as good as it could have been. Season 1 was great. I feel like each season kind of got worse than the last one, except I thought season 4 rebounded strong. It just ended poorly. But Westworld at its worst is 8 million times better than this. And HBO was like, yeah, we don't even need that. Meanwhile, this garbage got renewed. Like, it's insane. Let's see, what do I have next? Random, I guess, question about the baby. If the baby's so powerful or so important that Lasher had to set up this situation in which Rowan could get pregnant with the baby so that he could inhabit the body, what if the baby was a girl? Like, and then, like I said, does he have to wait for it to grow? Like, is he like now just kind of like, okay, like a super powerful person inside a baby, just like, all right, just wait until I can use my powers. Like, I don't know, man. And then in the final scene, for whatever reason, and the final scene, I didn't like the final scene when I watched it because I'm like, that's the end of the episode. This show really doesn't care about its viewers. But I hated the final scene even more after I watched that after show. All right, so in the final scene, for whatever reason, Rowan all of a sudden is like super anti-Sip. She's accusing him of trying to control her when he's been helping her this whole time. She's accusing him of lying to her. He's like, I just want to help you. And she's like really shitty to him. And I watched the after show, and the showrunner, I wrote down some of the stuff the showrunner said. The showrunner's like, talking about Sip, we should be seeing someone we love who is empathetic turn into this other person. I'm like, what? Are you even watching the show that you made? Like, what do you mean turn into another person? Like, she's acting like Rowan's reaction to Sip was on the screen, and it fucking wasn't. Like, I saw the same Sip I've seen all season, a guy who, beyond all reason, wants to help this worthless woman. For whatever reason, he wants to help her, and he continues to try to help her. Like, that is what I saw. I didn't see someone who turned into this other person. Like, what is she talking about? And then the showrunner says, Rowan's sick of men trying to control her. Like, Sip's been the same person this entire show, putting himself second in order to help Rowan, and now the showrunner wants to paint his actions as some sort of controlling, male chauvinistic bullshit because she wants a fucking feminist badge on her fucking Facebook profile. Like, what are you talking about? Rowan's sick of men trying to control her. What are you, like, where did that even happen? Like, what, like, Sip never tried to control her. He only tried to, I'm just beating a dead horse here, but the show is so fucking dumb. The showrunner is on the thing sounded like she's trying to get retweets or some shit, trying to get fucking internet clout, virtue signaling. Like, what are you talking about? Like, she tries to paint Sip as the men on this show as some sort of pigs, and I'm like, where did this come from? Like, I mean, Lasher is a pig, but that's his fucking character. Like, it was not like a man, like men on this show were scumbags or something like that. Like, Sip's been good to her. Like, I don't know why. I didn't believe Rowan's response in that moment. Like, that did not resonate with me. Like, I didn't believe that. But you know what I did? I chalked it up. I'm like, her mind's not right because of Lasher. That's how I wrote it off. I'm like, no, her mind's not right because of Lasher. She's been acting kind of like she's been acting like post the sex scene between her and Lasher. After that, she kind of acted like an enamored teenage girl, like big bright-eyed, like, where are you, Lasher? Like, she seemed totally into him. So I'm like he's in her brain. Maybe that's why she acted that way. And I wrote it off like that. Then the showrunner undercuts that by giving me a stupider explanation. Like, no, she's sick of men trying to control her. Where did that come? That's not on the screen. Like, oh, God, I hate this fucking show. Yeah, it's just like, you can't control her. I mean, no, Sip was like, you can't control him. Like, it sounded like a warning, like, help, like, look, like, you need my help. Like, you might think you got it under control. You can't control him. Lasher's been in control of you this whole time. You can't control him. Did not sound like Rowan's stupid fucking response, which was, You can't control me. Like, what is this kind of shit? Unless you go do this kind of shit, start shaking her head. You can't control me. Like, what? Oh my God, I hated this fucking episode, man. This shit was so bad. Like, oh my God, you can't control me. What kind of stupid fucking retort was that? He's not trying to control you, he's trying to help you, you fucking idiot. Oh my God. Why did Sip's boss, what's his name? Albright? I don't know. Why did he shake Sip's hand? He knows what Sip can do. He even made a face, like when Sip stuck his hand out, he even looked at the hand kind of like, should I do this? He shakes his hand, Sip learns everything. Like, I hate when shows make characters stupid because they can't think of a smart way to get where they want to go. Like, they wanted to get to a point where he felt justified in needing to, like, erase Sip's memory and do whatever he did with Sip's sister. And the only way they could get there was by having him shake Sip's hand, knowing full well what was going to happen. Like, that felt dumb to me. And then Sip's sister finds his, like, Talamasca business card in his office desk drawer. It's just sitting there like it's the fucking, like, tree trimming company. And then he comes, the boss guy, Albright, I don't know what his name is. He comes and he, like, erases her memory. And she's sitting there passed out. And he's like, wait, is she lactating? I'm like, what? And he's like, I think he said, like, she's going to want to save Sip. Let's bring her with us. And I'm thinking, like, okay, is the plan, like, they're going to have her, like, breastfeed Rowan's baby for whatever reason? I'm like, okay, that's a weird thing to include in the episode, but whatever. Let's see what happens. Nothing happened. They didn't revisit it. I don't know if they thought that was a cool enough thing to leave hanging into season 2. Like, people are going to be entering season 2. Like, man, I really want to know what they're going to do with Sip's sister's titties. Like, I don't know what they thought that was supposed to be. If they thought it was a cool cliffhanger or some shit, but they didn't even bother finishing that, so whatever. It felt, you know what it felt like? It felt like the episode ended before it was supposed to. Because Rowan's like, you're not by yourself, and, like, in the background, you can see, like, just, like, the front of a car, and I'm thinking, like, who's supposed to be with him? And I'm thinking, like, we're gonna see maybe Sip go back to that car, or something like that. You know, something that's gonna expand upon, again, why Rowan was behaving that way in that moment. Like, nothing she said makes sense to me, or was justified within that moment of the show and within that scene. So I'm thinking, like, okay, maybe we're gonna go back to something else, and then it ended, and I'm just like, this is the worst fucking season finale I've ever seen. I don't have anything else to say about this show. I can't overstate how bad I thought this episode was. Now I still believe it's the worst season finale I've ever seen. There's no way. I mean, if it's not obvious, there's no way season 2 is happening. And for me, it's obviously happening for AMC. For me, no way season 2 is happening. You know, I wanted to stop this show after episode 4, and I was like, you know, it might have even been 3. And I said, you know, I plays are down. There's not a lot of shows out. I don't have a ton I'm covering. I'll just keep doing it. I'll just keep getting the plays. The plays will translate into some pennies. Fuck it. I'll take the pennies rather than not take the pennies. Whatever. You couldn't, like, you really couldn't pay me to cover season 2 of this. Ain't no way I'm watching that shit. So, that's it, man. I hope you at least enjoyed me shitting on this show, because I know you didn't enjoy the show because after I watched it, I was so mad, and I was like, you know what? This is gonna be the time where I'm gonna see what everyone else thinks. And all I did was Google Mayfair Witches episode 8, something like that. And I didn't find anything for episode 8 because technically it hasn't aired yet. It doesn't air until Sunday, but I found like reviews for like episode 7, reviews for the show. I saw like a Facebook thing about it. It was like a Facebook post from AMC advertising the finale, and I looked at the comments. Like, I looked at all kinds of stuff just to kind of see what people are thinking. No one likes this show. No one. I didn't see a single positive review. Nobody likes this show. Why is it getting a second season? Like, they just must really want to do that Immortal Universe thing, because I didn't find a single, like, oh yes, give me more of this. Nobody likes this show. I don't know. But that's all I got, guys. Sorry I spent 23 minutes shitting on this show, but I mean, it deserved it. It was terrible. I hated it. I hope I never have to watch it again. I won't be seeing season 2. So I will see you guys if you follow me to a different show. And until then, peace.